Brahmanda Purana, Part 4, Chapter 28. Visukra and Visanga slain. Hayagriva said, on hearing that his brother, the great Daitya, had been vanquished in the battle and that his army was slaughtered, Bhanda, the Daitya, became extremely distressed with great anxiety. Bhanda, the Daitya, sent both of his brothers together to the battle along with all the soldiers. The two Daityas, Vishanga and Vishukra, became excessively angry and directed by Bhanda, the Daitya, they strained themselves to the utmost. An army that shook the three worlds followed Vishukra, the crown prince of great strength, accompanied by his younger brother. The crown prince, surrounded by 400 Akshohinis of soldiers, increased in great vigor. 10 Hafti nephews, beginning with Ulukajit, born of Dhumini, the sister of Bhanda, swaggered on account of their valor. They had been trained in the use of weapons by Bhanda, their great uncle. As generals, they started on making 10 directions reverberate on account of loud twanging sounds of their bows. These nephews increased the pleasure of both the maternal uncles on account of these activities. They had their several vehicles, which they got in full of pride. They kept their weighty bows ready drawn and followed Vishukra. Vishukra reached the battlefield riding on his elephant. He was fully rendered splendid with the umbrella and chowries that constituted the symbol of glory of the status of being the crown prince. Thereupon, surrounded by the army, making an uproarious, tumultuous sounds, Vishukra roared terrifically like a lion. Shaktis were excited within their hearts on account of their agitation. Proudly and excitedly they went out of enclosure of fiery rampart wall in rows. By their physical splendor they appeared to make the sky full of lightning streaks. The circle of firmament was rendered enveloped with red lotuses as they lifted up their faces eager to carry on battle. Then the younger brothers of Bhanda, very ferocious in fighting, had come to the battlefield. Mantrini and Dandanaika came to fight, seated in their excellent chariots Kirichakra as well as Gneyachakra, the crest jewel of all chariots. They came there simultaneously with the circular royal umbrella held aloft and being fanned by chowries. Their great victory was being sung by the dancing celestial damsels. They set out to carry on war. At the bidding of Lalita, an army of 100 Akshohinis had been placed by both of them for the purpose of protecting the glorious Chakra Ratharaja. Excepting this army, the entire remaining divisions of the army set out eagerly for the battle. Seated in her chariot, Dandanatha went ahead, with only a single finger of one hand. She was wielding her weapons of plowshare, and with the other hand she was brandishing the pestle frequently. Her lotus like face, resembling the snout of a boar, shone with the sparkling digit of the moon as its crest jewel. In the battle, she was genuinely proud of her exploits. She was striking the enemy from the front. Mantrini, seated in the chariot Gaya Chakra, followed her. Highly proud as she was, she filled the universe with the sound of her bow. Her tresses were braided, and the moon shone like a tender blossom placed within it. Three eyes, the third eye in N, shone in her forehead with the luster of a sacred mark of saffron. Her hands, resembling lotus, were made more beautiful with bangles studded with jewels. She was whirling an arrow drawn from the quiver. Dancing celestial sages were excited with great delight. They felicitated her with nectarine words of blessing like "Be victorious, be exalted." By means of the creaking sounds produced by friction of the rims of wheels of the leading chariot Gaya Chakra, she tore up, as it were, the surface of the earth along with the hearts of Daityas. By means of musical compositions that surpassed everything else in the world, and that enchanted the minds of the entire universe, many celestial ladies sang her glory. 8,000 Akshohinis of soldiers, haughty of their ability to wage war, led by her, resembled the limitless ocean at the close of a kalpa. Among the multitudes of troops of our Shaktis, the some had the refulgence of gold, some resembled the pomegranate flowers, and some had the luster of clouds. Others were saffron complexioned. A few were pink colored like the patala trumpet flowers. Some had robes shining like the crystal mountain, and some were pleasingly tender and beautiful, though dark in color. Others had the luster of diamonds, some others were comparable to emeralds, some displayed their bodily luster, wielding different kinds of weapons, including the 5 arrows of Cupid opposed to one another, and mingled with 100 edged thunderbolts. Thus innumerable Shaktis moved on. O pot-born sage, warlike preparations and equipments of Mantrini were similar to those of Dandanatha. Many things in Dandini were of the same nature as in the great queen, such as ornaments, dress, etc. The characteristics of prowess and influence, possession of good qualities, according of protection to those who seek refuge, ability to kill daityas, worthy of being worshipped by all and other powers. One thing specially to be mentioned in the case of Dandini was the signet ring of order held in her hand as a symbol of ministership granted by the great queen. When the armies of Mantrini and Dandanatha moved on thus, the earth reached a breaking point due to their burden, and it heaved like a swing. Thereupon a chaotic and uproarious battle ensued. It caused horripilation. The waters of the 7 oceans turned into a slushy moss by the dust particles that rose up. The cavalry fought with those on horseback. Those riding in the chariots fought with those stationed in chariots. The elephant riders fought with those who rode on elephants. The infantry fought with swords. In the course of the battle, Dandanatha fought with Visanga. Drawing her jewel studded bow, Shyama fought with Visukra. Ashwarudha, deity seated on a horse, powerfully fought with Ulukajit. With a great desire for fighting, Sampadisha came into clash with the demon Purusena. The deity Nakuli challenged and came into a clash with Kuntisena. Unmatta Bhairavi fought with Malada. Laghu Shyama fought with Kushura. Swapneshi waged war with the leading Daitya named Mangala. Vagavadini clashed with Draghana in the battle. Chandakali fought with the wicked Kolata. The 100 Akshohinis of deities fought with the Akshohinis of the Daityas. Highly furious, both the armies fought a great battle mutually. As the fight went on, Vishukra, the wicked Danava, observed the army of Shaktis increasing in power and his own army decreasing in power. Overwhelmed with great indignation, he drew his heavy bow and discharged Trashastra, the missile of thirst, over the army of Shaktis. The footnote says the author's ingenuity in converting vice, virtues, physical and mental handicaps into astras, missiles, appears now and then. It reached its climax in Bhandasura's fight with Lalita. Chapter 29. Here, this astra is capable of making the whole army thirsty. Its effect is described in verse number 45 to 53. The whole army was afflicted by that missile as brilliant as the flames of a forest fire. On the third day of the battle, when only a yama about the 3 hours had passed since sunrise, Shaktis became afflicted and overpowered by the Trashastra, missile of thirst, discharged by Vishukra. An acute fever of thirst raged amidst Shaktis. It stirred up and agitated the sense organs. It made the root of the palate parched. It rendered the ear cavities rough and arid. It caused feebleness and fatigue all over the body. It caused their bodies fall flat on the ground with the weapons dropping off one by one. The army of Shaktis was excessively afflicted by a thirst that made them inactive in the battles and destroyed their enthusiasm. On seeing this, Mantrini and Potrini became extremely anxious. Seated in her chariot, Mantrini said to Dandanatha, who was also seated in her chariot and who was suspicious and afraid of great calamity. She wanted her to find a remedy for the same. She said, "Dear friend Potrini, this missile of thirst of the wicked fellow weakens and impairs our army. Alas, the adverse activity of fate! The battle has been abandoned by the troops of Shaktis, the roots of whose palates have been have been parched up, whose refulgence has been dispelled, and whose weapons have been dropped down. None of them is fighting nor even holding the weapons. Dear friend, they are incapable of even speaking, since the roots of their palates have been dried up. What will Maheshwari say on hearing about this miserable plight of ours? Injurious disservice has been done by the Daityas. Let the remedy be thought of. Among the 16,000 Akshohinis, dear Potrini, there is not even a single Shakti who is not afflicted by thirst. On seeing this opportunity, when the army has cast off its weapons, the Danavas, ever eager to strike at weak and vulnerable points, are alas striking and killing by means of arrows. In this matter, some means of activizing them in war must be devised by you and me. There is an ocean of cold water in one of the steps of your chariot. Command him to dispel the thirst of all Shaktis. The thirst of these cannot be quenched by means of small quantities of water or other beverages. That Madira Sindhu, ocean of liquor, alone will satisfy the troops of Shaktis. Command that noble souled one who is capable of encouraging them to fight, who can dispel their entire thirst, and who can enhance their great strength. When this was advised, Dandanatha was delighted by the suggestion of a good means. The deity called Surasindhu, ocean of liquor, commanded him thus on the battlefield. The golden colored ocean of liquor was liquid with intoxication and with reddened eyes. He was adorned with garlands. He saluted Dandanatha and stood ready to carry out her behests. He divided himself into various units of various colors. Some were of pale red hue like the youthful, that is, midday sun. Some were dark colored like tapicha, Indian cinnamon. Some were white in color. The king of oceans split into many units by the wind, showered crores of sweet currents of liquor as thick as trunks of elephants. The ocean fell in the midst of the army of Shaktis being poured down by the Balahaka clouds at the close of a kalpa beginning with Pushkaravartaka. The ocean of liquor showered those beverages by the mere fragrance of which even the dead man might rise up perfectly well, and the weak ones would become very strong, quaffing those series of liquor torrents surpassing Parardha, one followed by 17 zeros, in number. By means of their mouths, distressed by thirst, Shaktis rose up. By means of volleys of thousands of arrows, dexterously discharged, Kadamba Vanavasini, resident of Kadamba forest, the deity of wonderfully miraculous performances, built a great rampart wall all round the army of Shaktis, lest the shower of liquor should fall amidst Daityas. By this action all Devas became surprised. In the midst of the battle, Shaktis drank plenty of liquor of various kinds capable of increasing strength and enthusiasm. They drank it as they pleased, selecting the liquor of particular taste they liked. On the third day of the battle, till the end of the second prahara, till midday, or for a period of two praharas, that is for 6 hours, the ocean of liquor showered torrents of liquor continuously. The footnote says the battle seems to have come to a standstill for some time while Shaktis were drinking wine. The period is recorded in verse number 70 to 77, 70 and 77, and effects of drinking in verse number 82 to 84, 96 to 97. The oceans of liquors showered torrents of liquors of various kinds, such as Gaudi, spirit distilled from molasses; Poishti, spirit distilled from meal; Madhvi, liquor made from honey; the excellent Kadambari, spirit distilled from Kadamba flowers, no clear Kadamba; Hintali, spirit from the palm of the variety Hintala; Elet paludosa; Langaleya, spirit from the palm of the variety Langala; Mithonia superba. Many varieties of palm made spirits, divine liquors made from the kalpa tree. Liquors coming from various countries, liquors with good taste, fragrance, liquors with pleasant odor, liquors rendered sweet smelling by means of Bakula flowers, Mimosops elengi, liquors sparkling with foams and bubbles, liquors made pleasing by means of bacula flowers, Mimosaps elengi, liquors sparkling with foams and bubbles, liquors with a pleasing sound when the foams rise, liquors with all types of tastes such as katuka, pungent, kashaya, astringent, madhura, sweet, tikta, bitter, isadamla, slightly sour, katwamla, pungent and sour, madhuramla, sweet and sour, liquors with diverse colors, liquors of slimy nature, chedinis, those that pierce and tear, liquors dispelling the pain of wounds of weapons, liquors that bring about union in a broken bone, cool liquors that dispel vertigo and giddiness while fighting, liquors light and lukewarm, and different varieties of liquors that dispel distress and bestow victory. The Madirarnava, ocean of liquor, showered different kinds of liquors in torrents. Each one of the yoginis, that is Shaktis, joyously drank the torrent of liquor as big as the trunk of Airavata elephant uninterruptedly for the period of one full yama, 3 hours. Shaktis went on drinking liquor joyously with their eyes closed. Their faces were supine and moving to and fro with lolling tongues. After propitiating them by means of torrents of liquors of various kinds in this manner, the ocean of liquor assumed a divine form and came there. He approached Dandanatha and after bowing to her spoke these words in a pleasant and majestic tone. Look, O great queen, O deity, the leader of Danda Mandala, multitudes of troops, the army of Shaktis that had been stupefied before had been revived and gladdened by me. Some of them are dancing and singing with their girdles and waistbands tinkling sweetly. Some of them are clapping their hands in front of those who dance. Some are laughing boisterously with their beautiful breasts shaking and bouncing. A few of them lean on one another's bodies with the laziness and slackness due to delight. Some begin to swagger as girdles and garments begin to slip down from their hips. Some have got up ready for fighting but without any weapon. They simply shake and shiver. On seeing Shaktis thus pointed out by the ocean of liquor, Dandini was extremely satisfied and she said to him, I am gratified, O ocean of liquor. A good help and assistance has been rendered by you. This is a work on behalf of the Devas. It has been achieved without any hindrance. Due to my favor henceforth, in the age of Dwapara, you will be extremely worthy of being used by uh, yajnikas, priests who perform sacrifices. In their sacrifices, like the drinking of soma. The footnote says soma juice is equated with wine, and the use of soma in sacrifices is attributed to the wine ocean's provision of wine to Shaktis in this battle. Vide verse number 87 to 89. All the deities will drink you after you have been sanctified by means of mantras in the course of sacrifice. After drinking you, purified by the mantras, let the people attain siddhi, spiritual achievement, riddhi, prosperity, strength, heavenly bliss, and salvation. All these great people will drink you, viz. Maheshwari, Mahadeva, Baladeva, Bhargava, Dattatreya, Vidhi, and Vishnu. On being worshipped in the course of yaga, you will bestow all kinds of siddhis. After gratifying the ocean of liquor by granting boons, thus Dandini urged Mantrini for fighting once again and asked her to hasten it. Again the fight between Shaktis and Danavas was resumed. The loud and boisterous laughter of joy pierced the 8 cardinal points and mountains. Intoxicated due to the fresh wine and with their eyes rendered red, Shaktis fell upon the troops of Daityas in a body and sportively. Shaktis had the refulgence of beaming pride. Two things connected with them shone on account of two other things. The eyes sparkled on account of redness due to inebriation, and the weapons due to the blood of Daityas. The war between Shaktis and demons was so tumultuous that it was as if the god of death himself began to annihilate the subjects undaunted. Due to inebriation, Shaktis were stumbling in their steps. Their eyes had become reddened. They were uttering heroic words, though the syllables faltered now and then. They were proud of their ability to wage war. All their limbs and eyes became delighted with hairs standing on their ends like the birds in the Kadamba plant, Nauclea chandamba, that appear simultaneously. These Shaktis annihilated the armies of the crown prince. Dandini shattered 100 Akshohinis. Mantrini annihilated 150 Akshohinis. Ashwaruda and others, with their eyes red due to inebriation, collectively led 150 Akshohinis to the mansion of God of Death. In the course of the battle, the deity Turagarohini, Turagarohini smashed and shattered Ulukajit with the excessively sharp god and made him a guest in the other world, that is, killed him. Sampatkari and others, generals of the divisions of the army of Shaktis, checked and restrained others, the chief of whom was Purusena, and ultimately tore them up. When the sun set, the entire army had been killed. Thereupon Shyamala became excessively angry and fought with Visukra. By discharging missiles and counter missiles, Mantrini displayed a great deal of war-like activity, dreadful even to the heaven dwellers, and continued the war. One by one she cut off and split the keen and sharp weapons of Vishukra of great prowess. She cut his flagstaff, charioteer, bowstring, the staff of the bow, etc., by means of arrows. With the miraculous missile named Brahmastras that had the brilliance and splendor of the sparkling fire, she shattered Vishukra. He fell down with his body ground to powder. Dandanatha, who was extremely proud of her ability, fought with Vishanga, the great Daitya. She hit him with a dreadful iron club. That wicked Danava raised with his hand a mace resembling the staff of Kala and fought an extremely dreadful battle. Engaged in fighting with maces, they shattered each other's limbs. Their dreadful and boisterous laughter reverberated in the battlefield. They went round and round everywhere. They displayed different kinds of strategic movements. They heaved from side to side. They encircled each other quickly by striking each other by means of batons and rods. They stupefied each other frequently. Both of them were equally proud and keenly observed the weak and vulnerable points in attacking each other. Their garments were stirred up when the great iron club and the tip of the rod came into a clash. Thus, both of them, equally unassailable, fought with one another. She fought with him till midday. She fought with him till midnight. Dandanaika, who became very furious, began to strike at Vishanga. She dragged her enemy with the plowshare that pierced and went deep into his head. Potrini struck a hard blow with her iron club. On account of the blow from the iron club, the great Asura had to abandon his vital heirs. With his body shattered into 100 pieces, he fell on the ground. After completing the great task, thus Mantrini and Dandanaika spent the remaining part of the night there itself in the direction of the camp.